Welcome, this is Kevin Woodbury from Twin Suns Tutorials, and today I'm going to do my longest video ever. There are spots in it to stop and take a break, please do so. What we're talking about is how to test lenses and cameras for sharpness, and specifically the combination of a lens and a camera. I'm using a Canon 5D Mark III along with a Canon 24-105 lens. You can use any camera and lens combination. Just note that the settings do change based on that combination. And the first thing I want to do is get everybody onto the same page. So please go to bing.com as your search engine. I realize you may use something different. And open that up. And this is what you'll see. Now, granted, I've typed something into the search engine, but what I care about is the verbs at the top: web, images, videos, maps, news, explore. Once we get our search results, I'm going to have you click on images. So I wanted to cover that real quick so you knew when I said click on images what I meant. So first type in the search box USAF 1951 resolution chart. Now if you're a slow typer, put this on hold. Once you've typed it in, you should get that very same entry that you can select. And I want you to go to Images, click on the very first picture you see. That'll open up a larger version of that image. That's a high resolution image. Right click and download it. And then open it on your screen, and what you'll see is this. And what I need you to do is print it onto plain paper. Do not use photo paper. I just want you to use plain paper. And then find a space on your wall or a door where you can both post it and have some space in front of it where you can move the camera around a bit. So make sure it's flat on the wall though, no ripples. Then we need to create something for recording our activity. So when we go back to review the images, we know exactly what combination of f-stop and shutter speed we were using at the time. So this is the chart I would use. In yellow, I record the focal length and the ISO. You want to keep that ISO as low as possible. I record the number of the image that the camera records it as well as the f-stop and the shutter speed associated with that. So when I shot an f4 100 combination, it was the image number 7711. That's important for later. Because I'm also going to test two other focal lengths, 24 and 70, I created this other chart, which basically just has three of the same chart stacked on top of each other. And again, notice that 100 ISO is used throughout, and that's what I recommend, or 200 if you can't do 100. Now take a break and review what you need to review and come back. Welcome. Now we're going to talk about camera setup. The first thing you want to do is mount that camera on a tripod. You cannot do this handheld. So mount the camera and then raise the camera so that the center of the lens is lined up with the center of the chart. And also make sure that the camera is parallel to the wall or the door that you're using. That's a fairly important step. And so this is kind of what I'm talking about. Notice that the center line goes from the lens to the chart. And if you look at the camera, it is parallel to that wall. Now you don't have to measure it out exactly. You can just kind of eyeball it, but try to make it as parallel as possible. Then we need to level the camera. Now there's some built-in levels in cameras such as this. You can also use a bubble level. You can use the level in your tripod, or you can use a carpenter's level. Just somehow level that camera. And you're leveling it left to right, front to back. And along with being parallel, you should get good shots. Set the ISO to its lowest setting, ideally 100, but if not 200. That'll give you the cleanest image. You won't get noise. And then turn off autofocus and turn off image stabilization. We're going to manually focus this. And what I need you to do is take the lens cap off and turn on live view. And in a moment you'll see that I filled the frame within live view with the image of the chart. And I need you to do that. So fill that frame as much as possible with the chart. And then manually focus. I hope you know how to live view focus, but if you don't, you can always ask me. However, if there's plenty of YouTube videos on it. Now I'm going to be testing 105, 70, and 24 as focal lengths. Now this is about 3 feet away with a 105 focal length. But as I test 70, I've got to move in closer so I can fill that frame again. So notice I go about half the distance closer. And then as I do 24, I go even closer, almost right on top of the chart, as a matter of fact. And all of that is an attempt so I can fill the frame. You also have to adjust your lighting each time you do that. You can't keep the lighting the same. We'll talk about that in a minute. In terms of lighting, you can use almost anything as long as it's consistent light. LEDs work. Just keep in mind that the cheap LEDs diminish in intensity as the batteries drain. So that doesn't work because you want a constant light source. But if you have a high-end one, you can use that. You can use monolights, which I'll show you in a moment. That's a monolight. You can use one of those silver domed utility lights from Home Depot, ideally with a natural light bulb in it. You can also use natural light. This is what I chose. I did the monolight. I came over the right shoulder of the camera, and notice how close those two are. And I got good exposure readings. So take a break, review what you need to, and come back. Now in terms of shooting the image, first thing I want you to do is set your meter reading to evaluative, or set your meter to evaluative and take a meter reading at 4.0 or 2.8, whatever your widest operating is. And then I need you to center the meter. Now in the Canon it's easy. You have the meter along the bottom. You just take your shutter speed and turn it until it zeroes out. Nikon has something similar, but I don't have one to show you. And what we're going to be working with is strictly whole focal lengths. I'm sorry, whole f-stops. So we're going to do 4, 5, 6, 8, 11, 16, and 22. We don't care about anything in between. Those are not whole stops. But keep in mind as we go from one to the other, we have to change our shutter speed too to keep the light consistent. So in this case, I took a reading. I got f4 at 100. And I took my first picture, and here's what we got. Now notice the lighting is even. You want to look at the bars within this graph to see how clear and crisp they are. The ones that are close together, can you differentiate them? But we'll talk more about that later. Now I took a second exposure reading at 5.6, but I reduced my shutter speed to 50, so I had the same exposure. And here's what I got again. Then I went and changed my f-stop to f8 and changed my shutter speed to 25. Notice that as one goes up, the other goes down. And took another meter reading, or took another shot. And again, you'll see the results of that. And I kept doing this over and over again until I got to f22. Now, some people may have f32. If you have it, go to it and try it. But you continually repeat that process until you get to f22. Then you move the camera closer. Again, we're going to now do a 70 millimeter test versus a 105. So I've got to move the camera closer. I've got to move my lighting. I've got to fill the frame with the chart. I've got to refocus. I've got to take a meter reading to make sure that my lighting still gives me f4 at 100. I want to match that same setting as I had on the last exposure. So move the lighting around until you get that. And this is kind of what it looks like as I've moved my camera from 105, which was about 3 feet out, to 70 millimeters, which is about 1.5 feet out. And then I started the whole sequence over again. I shot from f4 all the way up to f22, changing my shutter speed along the way. And then when I finished that, I moved my camera again so that I could shoot a 24 millimeter shot. Did everything again, moved my lighting, adjusted it, filled the frame, refocused, and then I started shooting the sequence all over again. Do that and take a break, and I'll show you how to evaluate the results.